I was exposed to enough, I was influenced by enough, me going to a Tom Ferry conference in 2014 and seeing these people standing on stage that were doing 500 units per year. And I said to myself, well, if they can do it, I can do it. And over time, you look up and it's like, holy shit, how did I get here?
You're the number one team in Louisiana for volume and sides. In 2022, you did over 490 closings for 144 million. Last year, 393 closings for 110 million. And you're up this year.
So I've created from the MREA, which is the 36 touch. So my database hears from me quarterly. They're receiving at least a minimum of 2 emails from me every month. We're mailing to them 4 times per year. You've got to stay top of mind. And if you're not staying top of mind, then you're the secret agent. So look, this happened today, right before this call. I jumped on Fellow. It was one of my people who got in there and filled it out, and they wanted to know what their thing was. It said it was 360. I went in there, I ran a quick CMA, and all I did was just went into the MLS and said sold pending over the last 12 months in their neighborhood. There was only 2. Both of them sold for the same price, which is $188 a square foot. That moved him up from 360 to 386. I popped it in, changed his value, sent it to him, sent him a text and said, hey, Colby, just want to let you know, man, I ran a personal CMA for you and I changed the value and I went ahead and updated that. Did you have any questions? You've got to be proactive and not reactive. Now, I'll tell you what happened because I realized something very important. I wish it was earlier in my career than I did.
You're the number one team in Louisiana for volume and sides. And in 2022, you did over 490 closings for 144 million. Last year, 393 closings for 110 million. And you're up this year. Everyone can kind of see like those numbers, but I was curious because it takes a lot to get to that point. And it's not just all uphill. So could you talk to that?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So obviously in 2022, it was crazy, man. Our per agent productivity was really, really high. We had a lot less people. I want to say then maybe we had like probably 15 people, maybe 20. Since then, we've doubled our agent count. I mean, I'd say we're probably closer to 15. We're at 43, and that's across 3 markets. So main hub market is in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. If you go 45 minutes east, they call it the North Shore, which is north, separated by a lake from New Orleans. And then, of course, you have the South Shore, which is like the greater New Orleans area. So we pivoted in 2022, and we're really focused on expansion. So we've opened up those 2 markets, which has really helped this year, specifically being a little bit of a down market. I mean, our market specifically last month, year over year, pending sales were down 26%, closed sales were down 14%. So, coming off of the worst year we've seen since either, 2000 or 2008, which some people argue, we knew that it was going to be challenging, and we knew we didn't have a lot of control over certain things, obviously like affordability and interest rates and things like that. But what we did have control over is we had control over recruiting. And we made a very intentional move to grow our expansion networks as well as our hub network, which is in Baton Rouge. So obviously last year, coming out of 2022, when the market was really good, and everybody was selling real estate, in 2021 still to this day, even though we did less production and we did less GCI, less production, I had a really, really good year, and I've had a really, really good year this year. One of the things I noticed was as I started to try to pull myself out of production, right, your GCI inevitably will suffer when you do that. So that is advice. Me jumping back in 2024 specifically has been a huge reason for the amount of production that we've done this year in volume, which is great. 2022, same thing. I had a pretty solid year, but 21 was really good from a profitability standpoint. So once those rates started to really, started to increase in 2022 is when we saw our business start, to decline a little bit. And then last year was brutal. I don't know how else to say it other than, it was challenging. It was tough, but the fact that we did have control over the recruiting and we spent, a lot of time and we were super intentional about bringing on more agents, not only to our hub group, but also to our expansion teams. That really set us up for a lot of success here on the front end of 2024. And man, now that we're through, I mean, today is August 2nd, and we've gotten some really good news from the Fed, which is great. And Fed's saying, hey, look, you can almost guarantee of either a half point or maybe a quarter point drop in September, as well as potentially even something in December. So I'll tell you, man, I'm really, really, really optimistic and really excited about what we have moving forward. So that's what we did. We were just real intentional on growth, and we knew that was what it was going to take in order for us to achieve our goals.
And I want to get to like the team, the growth, the expansion on that side, because in a bit, because it's kind of the other side to the same coin when you look at like getting listings, getting buyers, like getting agents, growing that. It's the flip side, almost like you have client acquisition, talent acquisition, and you have the thought process around the operations, profitability around all that. But I think talking to like you going back into production and making sure the agents as well are consistently holding on to listings. Like, I think I looked at the numbers. You have roughly probably somewhere over like 70 plus active listings.
Yes.
So yeah, controlling that market and getting that is super crucial to controlling your business. So if you were to look at like your business as a pizza, and there's like slices, there's activities and sources that like build up to that, like what would you attribute as like the activities on a daily, weekly, monthly as like crucial for you, and then for the agents that help you control the market?
Yeah, so that's a great question. In Keller Williams, so I'm a Keller Williams agent, but Gary Keller has put together this. I mean, he does so many cool things, but it's called the Rule of Three, right? And the Rule of Three states that we should have a minimum of 3 lead sources in our business, right? So one of the things is, again, this is just super intentional. We sit down with each one of our agents and like, you need to identify your top 3 lead sources. So for everybody, it should be your sphere of influence and your past clients, right? So if we're looking at the pizza, that part of the pizza probably represents somewhere around 45 to 50%, maybe a little north of that. Okay. And here's why. If you look at my business and some of our veteran agents, the majority of our business is going to come from sphere of influence, past clients. Newer agents, right? It's going to come from Zillow. It's going to come from online leads, right? Mm-hmm. And we have a lot of online lead gen through Zillow Flex, through PPC, Dynamic. I mean, we could go down the rabbit hole with that. So that's obviously a huge part. The online leads would be the second part, which probably represents somewhere around 40% of our entire business. And then you move into a couple smaller slices, which could represent anywhere between 10 and 5% of the business. Could be anything from like, believe it or not, we get a lot of referrals from other agents outside of, our ecosystem, whether that's from, the Tom Ferry ecosystem or the Keller Williams ecosystem. People see our level of production. They reach out to me and they're like, hey, look, you guys sell a lot of houses. You guys obviously are doing the right things. So I'd say our agent referrals is a small piece, but we also have an ISA, and our ISA, he focuses strictly on for sale owners, expireds, withdrawals, and then he works all the third-party seller leads like HomeLight, Sold.com, what's another one? Fast Expert, right? You have those. And then, of course, it's the question around the buyer leads. You know what I mean? Those folks that have a house to sell, and those turn into sellers. So very intentional about not overwhelming the agent and just really picking 3 and focusing on that. Because the more opportunities you give them or the more things they could be doing, 9 times out of 10, what happens is paralysis sets in, right? Because they don't know what to focus on. So we try to make it pretty simple. We sit down, identify your top 3 lead sources, and let's focus on those. And then we circle back. How are you performing within those lead sources? I think a big one that a lot of people are missing out on that's about to become a huge opportunity is open houses. Obviously with the NAR settlement, people that are visiting open houses are not forced, to sign a buyer broker rep agreement to walk through the threshold of a door on an open house. So right now, one of the things that we're coaching our agents on is, we have, like you just said it yourself, we have over 70 listings, right? That's 70 opportunities from new construction to, single, whatever, like plenty of opportunities. Pick one and commit to that, whether you commit to 1 a week or 2 a week, 1 a month or 2 a month, or one a week, right? Which would be 4 a month. Like, let that be a lead source for you. And then you just need to focus on how do you grow that lead source, right? And how does that lead source inevitably help you really increase, the conversion in your business. So that's kind of how we look at the lead sources in our business.
Okay. And if, for example, when you step back in and then when you work with like the new agents who come on board, do you have some sort of like, here's the game plan or like action plan that you're going to do for the next 90 days to 6 months?
Yeah, that's a really great question.
So I bet you didn't know this, and it's that Glenda Baker did not build her $70 million real estate business using TikTok or social media. Actually, she built it through strategic gifting and building a luxury client experience, becoming the expert. Or that Suman Kim built a $60 million real estate business using YouTube in his first year in business. I have a newsletter that solves all of this. It's called Breaking and Building Leaders. It shows you how to get your next listing, how to grow a YouTube channel, how to grow a team, or grow and scale your team to build an organization. And it's like the Harvard Business Review, but for real estate. It's less than 3-minute bite-sized case studies that shows you how you can scale your real estate business. So click the link below. It takes less than 30 seconds to sign up and it's free. So if you want to scale your business, learn how to get your next listing, execute better marketing, make sure you sign up for the Breaking and Building Leaders newsletter using the link below. Now let's get back to the podcast.
And again, this is something that we really wanted to focus on. Call it the off season, right? Like, you're in season, right? When things are going really well. I say things are going really well, just when season is. And for us, the seasonality really rolls, 10% of the market's absorbed in the first quarter. 20%. 20% of the market's absorbed in the first quarter, 30% in the second quarter, 30% in the third quarter, and in the fourth quarter, 20%. So in those times, whenever it's just a little bit slower, my operations director and we do this all the time. And a lot of this stuff is like traction stuff, right? EOS stuff, off sites, where are the opportunities? And then we realized that the 30, 60, 90 for us was a huge opportunity. Meaning we're going to bring the agents in, we're going to onboard them. And these are the expectations that we have for you guys for the first 90 days. So consider yourself more or less like on probation for the first 90 days. We implemented that this year. And I'll tell you, that's been a game changer because we've had a really, really easy time letting people go if we've gotten through that 90-day period and they haven't fulfilled their obligations, right, to become a team member. And that's been huge because it sets the expectation for the 30, the 60, and the 90 more like, hey, you're falling a little behind on these things, what seems to be the obstacles we're running into, or they just stop showing up, right? They're not showing up to the Monday morning meetings, or they're not showing to what we would consider, fairly mandatory scripting and role playing that we do on Tuesdays. You can just tell, right? Everybody interviews really well. It's easy to interview well. It's easy to have motivation and ambition when you're sitting in front of your team leader and you're telling them all the things that you're excited to do. But to actually execute, right, on those things is completely different. So that has been very helpful for us as far as identifying who's going to be truly talent and who's not. And then we just try to get them out of there as quick as we can.
Yeah, because when you hire someone, it's like the honeymoon phase. Like it's really good early on and they kind of show you after that.
Absolutely.
So when you because you guys are very strategic with the scripting and the role playing that you guys do, it's a weekly thing. Is that different role playing and scripts for different lead sources for the different agents, or is it okay, can you talk to that? Is it for the Sphere because you have the Zillow, all that?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of everything, right? I mean, one of the most important things that we really do. So we're a Zillow Flex team, right? So we have a growth advisor. We meet with our growth advisor every other week. We have metrics, right? There's certain key performance indicators that we have to hit as a team in order to stay on the Flex program. So what we'll typically do is probably do a couple ALMs. So we'll run through and I'll say, hey, Andrew, hey, looks like you inquired about the property at 123 Main Street to see that today at 4:00. Hey, does that time still work for you? Awesome. Yeah. Hey, Andrew, what other homes would you like to see while we're out and about? Awesome. Yeah. Okay, perfect, man. I'll go ahead and add those to the list. And what was it specifically about this house that had you reach out to us today?
Oh, I just like the bedrooms and I like the pool in the back.
Perfect, man. Now that pool looks really, really, really good. Well, perfect. Hey, Andrew, I'll see you today at 3:00, man. And if you have any questions or need anything in the interim, again, Trey Willard, Zillow Premier Agent. So we'll rip through those. You know what I mean? We just want to make sure they know ALM. Bam. Okay, cool. What objections did you guys run into this week? Well, I'm getting a lot of objections around people want to wait because of interest rates. Okay, perfect. So let's role play that.
What's the, I'm sure that's probably pretty heavy right now. What are you guys
Yeah,
talking
yeah,
to?
it is 100%. So, what I've learned, Andrew, is everything is, these decisions are made out of fear and out of love, right? A lot of times, or pain and pleasure. You can call it whatever you want to, right? So the most important thing for me is just to understand, is it the interest rates that are the issue, or is it the affordability? Right? Oh, so I got you. So I'd say, hey, Andrew, just curious, man. We're getting a lot of this from our clients, and there's a lot of strategies that we can actually put in place that could really help out with the mortgage lending side of things. We could actually do some things to help lower your rate. So my question for you is it the mortgage rates that are holding you back, or is it the affordability?
It's the affordability.
Okay, great. So if we were able to show you how we could take that 6.5% interest rate and knock that all the way down to a 4.5% interest rate, would you be open-minded to that?
Yeah, that's Phil M. Jones. Would you be open-minded?
Yeah. Oh, look, I have. Hold on, you'll appreciate this, dude. I mean, like I've got my role play cards right here, right? So, Phil and I, you and I were talking offline a little bit about Tom Ferry.
Yeah.
Tom was the first person that brought Phil Jones out into the open, that people were really familiar with who he was. Chris Smith and Jimmy Mackin and Phil wrote a book called Exactly What to Say for Real Estate Agents. And then Gary Keller brings him into his world in KW. So like Phil and I are friends. Like we text, he's an amazing guy. But if you follow those simple magic words and you start to internalize those, and the big difference, Andrew, for most people is they memorize things, but they never truly internalize it. And the only way that you're ever going to truly internalize something is you got to get reps, man. You got to do it all the time. You got to put it in your own language and your own words, because like the way that I speak to somebody may not be the way you speak to somebody. I'm a good old boy from South Louisiana, bro. You know what I mean? We have a certain, charm.
Southern charm.
Some people will say about us, where maybe if you go up north in the Northeast or somewhere where people are a little bit more maybe direct, and some people may take that as being rude. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, it's figuring out what the motivation is on the buy and the sell side. And it's really, I know it seems simple, but it's not easy kind of thing. But it's asking the right questions. It's coming from a place of curiosity. It's being very genuine and very authentic around, look, I'm here to help you and I want to be your real estate advisor, right? Like, has anybody sat down with you guys for 15 or 20 minutes and explained the whole buying process?
Nope.
No, right? Awesome. Hey, Andrew, it would be really, really important that we met for a few minutes. Hey, did you want to come to the office, or would it be more convenient if I met you at like a Starbucks or something? We would just get a cup of coffee, right? Like just chat.
The wheels are just turning in my head. I'm just like most people aren't like asking that, like saying, hey, let's just sit down. Let's get that time together.
Of course. And look, not to beat a dead horse, because I'm sure the conversation that you're having with a lot of people and everybody's having is about the NAR settlement statement. Well, here in Louisiana, I can't speak for other states, it is a law. It has been enforced into law that a buyer broker agreement has to be signed before you walk through the threshold of a house. Okay, it is what it is. So for us, we have to take more time to sit down with these folks on the front end and explain that process, right? Instead of just jumping into, yeah, cool, I'll meet you at the house. And Zillow's got their showing their touring agreements that allow you to basically tour at no obligation, right? And look, I think you have to be open-minded to that, because I think that's the world we're moving into. I mean, Colorado has already said, dude, we're not enforcing these things because these buyers are pissed. They don't want to sign them. And I'm sure that same thing is going to happen here, but we're going to be prepared for it, right? And we're gonna charge forward. And I tell my agents all the time, I'm like, guys, this is awesome. And here's why this is awesome. When you look back at your pipeline and you have real signed buyer exclusivity agreements, who's buying a home with you and who's not buying a home with you. You know who you're spending time with that's going to be a good return on your time versus the people who are not going to be a good return on your time, right? So getting excited about that. So a lot of changes coming down the pipeline. So we've been doing a lot of role playing. Back to your question, I know it's kind of long-winded, but we've been doing a lot of role playing around getting buyer broker signed. And then, of course, it's all the traditional objections we hear from, buyers and sellers.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, one, like the importance of practice is kind of like the same reason people show up like for sports. Like you go to practice throughout the week and you can't just show up for the game. And the like appointments, when you do, for example, the Zillow, like do you set an appointment after the showing to do that buyer broker agreement or something like that?
Well, so new world we live in. Didn't have to do it before. Still technically don't have to do it until the 15th of August. I think we enforce it on the 15th and not the 17th. Moving forward, yeah, I think that's going to be part of it. I think you're going to have to make that a part of your process. Right now, it's not a part of our process. Okay. But moving forward, it will be. So that's a question. Do we want our agents to do that? Yeah, of course. But are they doing that? No. The answer is absolutely not. And Andrew, you brought up a great point, and I say this all the time, right? Everybody wants to be paid professional athlete money, but nobody wants to do professional athlete work, which is show up every day, practice, watch film, practice, lift weights, watch film, eat perfect, train perfect. It's part of it. And you spend way more time preparing for the game than you actually do in the game itself.
So true.
And it's the opposite for real estate agents. We spend very little time practicing and preparing, and we're in the game all the time. And I read a great book, and it's The Leadership Playbook by Nathan Jamel. And one of the things he specifically talks about is practice. And it's intentional practice. For me, it's every day. I'm just asking my agents to participate in practice one time a week, and I still can't get them to show up. And it's like, man, how invested in yourself, your future self, are you? Right? Because everything you do today is inevitably compounding and stacking for your future self. Every decision I make is the future, Trey. So I am diligent on what I put in my body. I am a freak when it comes to exercise, when it comes to training, when it comes to diet and nutrition. I'm a freak, right? But I know all of those decisions that I make, number one, I'm creating discipline in my world, right? Number two, those things are all going to affect future Trey in a really, really positive way. So every decision I make, I try to think about my future self and how this will either benefit or hurt. I just don't understand why more people don't have that same mindset, man. It drives me crazy.
I was going to ask that because it's like one being just probably an ambitious, like high D type person. It's like you have control over yourself. But then when you start to look at like control over your agents, it's like you only have so much control.
Correct.
So how do you kind of like deal with that on like a weekly basis? Like knowing sometimes they veer off course and you have to like help them self-correct.
Yeah. So that's another amazing question. And there is no real, like, this is what we do. So for me, and you asked this earlier, I got back into production for a reason. Number one, my cost of sale on my personal production is really low. If an agent does a deal and we do a 50-50 split, it's a 50-50 cost of sale. I got to pay 50%. The team retains the other 50%. If Trey does a deal personally, relative to expenses, right? And I don't want to get into like the economics of this. Let's just say Trey sells a house. The expenses are fixed. They are what they are.
Yep.
The difference between splitting a $15,000 commission and 50-50 or keeping $15,000 of commission, I personally have done somewhere around, and again, I want everybody to understand my median sales price on our team the median sales price in East Baton Rouge Parish is $265,000. Our median sales price is $315 as a team. I've personally done 17 million year to date, right? 35, I think, homes closed. My average sales price is somewhere probably between like 550 and closer to 600. It's significantly more lucrative for Trey and the business for me to be in production.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, by the way, it's also a great leadership quality when they see me in the weeds every day doing the same shit that they're doing. I'm in the front, man. I'm pulling the ship. Let's go, right? Like, I'm not asking you guys to do anything that I'm not going to do myself. And I think that gives me a tremendous amount of credibility with my agents.
Yep.
And they look up to me because they're like, look, this dude's crushing it. Well, I'm just showing up every day and taking disciplined action. And that's what it comes down to. And you know, so for me, it's like, look, there's things you said it a second ago. You have control your controllables. This is what I can control. And these are the things that I'm going to do. And I'm going to lead by example. Whether people choose to follow me or not, shame on them. Right? But that's what I do to try to really get their buy-in. I show up. I'm at the office every day. I'm at scripts and role playing. I show up for scripts and role playing every Tuesday because I know I can be better.
That's so good.
So yeah. I hope by leading, to answer your question, really, I hope by leading by example, I can motivate some people to say, I want the level of production that Trey has. I need to start taking the disciplined action that he takes on a daily basis.
So when you look at like your 17 million that you've done this year, and like you boil it down to like your 3 lead sources, like what are the sales and marketing things that you do that helped contribute to that this year?
Yeah, so I have always been a big sphere of influence, past client kind of guy. I'm a relation guy. So I'd come in, I learned this very, very early in my career. I would do lead generation for 2 hours every day. My goal was I had to speak to and have real estate conversations with a minimum of 10 people every day. Okay. So I adopted the same things I did then and I do it today. I don't have to have as many conversations because I've got 14 years of compound interest, compound action. Okay. But I'm also doing a lot of other things. I mean, I'm running 2 expansion teams. I'm running on ancillary services. You know, so I have to be incredibly intentional with the time that I do have. And part of that is still, how do I maintain top of mind awareness with the people? So I've created from the MREA, which is the 36 touch. So my database hears from me quarterly. They're receiving at least a minimum of 2 emails from me every month. We're mailing to them 4 times per year, right? We're doing 2 to 3 client appreciation events per year. So you got to stay top of mind. And if you're not staying top of mind, then you're the secret agent, right? I do, you know, a little bit of social media, and I have, you know, I do videos, and I'm not as active as I'd like to be, but I know where there's room for improvements for me. But I will tell you consistently, you can count on the 36 touch pretty much happening with my database year in and year out. And that has allowed the compound effect of my consistent business for the last 14 years. I mean, that's it. I mean, I just do this. I'm a very routine, disciplined kind of guy. That's the environment that I thrive in. So I have to make sure that I create it. And if I'm not in that world, I feel a little discombobulated, man. So I make sure I stay in that lane. And when I do that, everything's good.
Nice. So when you look at that, like, so you're connecting with a lot of people every single day. You have 2 events a year. Like, you probably have to switch up the messaging or like what you say to reconnect with some of them. I'm sure sometimes it's about rates. Sometimes it's like, hey, we have this event going on. Are there things that you kind of do, like, let's call them, I guess, playbooks? Like, hey, this is like how I'm going to reach out to this sphere, and maybe like, and obviously it's not always about real estate too. So, okay.
So the conversations to me, and again, this is how I operate. I have to keep them pretty consistent. So like one conversation could be, I'd say, Andrew, and look, I'm notorious for this phone right here, nothing fancy. Everybody's like, oh, I do bomb messages, but record, selfie. Andrew, hey, it's Trey. Well, I don't even say, hey, it's Trey. They know I'm right. Andrew, hey, wanted to reach out, man, and wish you a very happy birthday today, my friend. Dude, it's been so long since we connected, man. I hope you have an amazing day, man, and an amazing rest of the week, brother. I'll talk to you soon. Okay, so that's a touch. That's one of my quarterly touches. I'll send a message. So we're on Fellow now, and shout out to Ryan
nice.
Young for what he's built. It's a great platform. So we do a yearly equity check-in. So I make sure, hey, look, I know you guys have been getting your emails from Fellow, or not, I don't say Fellow, just your home valuation emails. I went in there and I made some tweaks, right? Based on the CMA that I ran, this is what I think your home's worth. Hey, what were your thoughts? Was it too high, too low, or just right? Boom.
Nice.
Number 2, home anniversary is an easy one. Or, hey, I'm riding through your neighborhood and I'm like, Andrew, hey, man, dude, I just left a listing appointment. Maybe I did. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I just showed a buyer. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I just needed an excuse to call you. You know what I mean? Hey, Andrew, man, I was just in the neighborhood. I was thinking about you, man. And this is where we go into the forward script, right? How are you? How's your family? Man, what's new with work? What have you guys been doing for fun? It's just an easy way to quickly connect with somebody, right? So that's 3. The 4th one is easy. Hey, we're doing our annual, we do king cakes. And I got on stage in 2016 in Vegas in front of 6,000 people with Tom Ferry. And I gave this exact same pitch. And I still do the same thing in 2024. And I'll say, hey, Andrew, it's Trey, man. It's our annual client appreciation event. You know, we're giving away king cakes at the office. We're doing maple bacon and we're doing traditional king cakes. Would you guys like to come and grab one? And then you get into the other stuff, the forward stuff. So like those are 4 easy ones. You could call somebody for a home anniversary. You know, I love the equity check-in. I think that's almost like a must, right? You gotta bring value to people. So yeah, just try to keep it really simple, man. I try not to overcomplicate things, because the more simplistic things are, man, the more likely that people are going to implement those into their business. If you make this shit too complex, man, it'll never happen. So just keep it simple. Don't overthink it. You know, just have a genuine conversation about, you know, life with somebody, you know, because you were thinking about it.
Yeah, it's the whole like simple scales, like complexity fails. Like
Yes. I love that. That's actually, I'm stealing that.
I heard like the HubSpot founder, like he talks about all the time, like they have to literally go into HubSpot like every so often and be like, how can we just simplify everything? Because it's so easy to just get so complex so quickly.
No, it's 100%, man. So yeah, so that's what we do. And we've implemented that. Look, we use Follow Up Boss. I truly believe, and I'll say this, I have one of the best, if not the best, operation directors in the entire real estate world. I mean, he's building code through make.com. What, like writing code, you know, and we're not talking about Zappy or connect this to this. I'm talking writing code and connecting everything that we use together, not natively. You know what I mean? I mean, he's doing it. He's writing it. And it's insane. So we have so much now, so many automations and so much AI that we've implemented in our business, and props to Daniel for being the true integrator to make that happen. So what we try to do is we try to build, basically consider it like a wall around our past clients and our all of our leads, right? We have about probably 45,000, close to 50,000 people in our database now. And that just keeps compounding, you know what I mean, month over month. So how do we make sure when they come in, they're on our email list, and when they come in, they're on our social media retargeting list, and when they come in, they're on our Fellow home valuation. You get what I'm saying? Yeah. So that's what we're doing. We're really just trying to create this almost like net, you know, this fail safe around our business. So these leads and these, you know, past clients aren't falling through the cracks. And haven't mastered it by any stretch, but we're definitely getting better every day.
And I want to get into the operation side in a second, but yeah. I think some people would be like a little bit, I don't know, taken back's the right word, but they would be like, so you're actually sending these videos one-to-one to your clients? Like you don't have, with the scale that you have, like the expansion markets, like ancillary services, like you are on the ground, boots on the ground, like sending the videos, doing all of this follow-up like yourself? Basically.
Yeah, I mean, so there's certain things that are scalable, definitely. If it's a video of me talking to the masses, that's a scalable video.
Yeah.
If I'm talking to you one-to-one, I can't replicate that. I mean, AI will allow you to, you know, you can put a fake Trey in there and do all that stuff. But to me, I still have enough time to get on my phone. And look, it's easy. I go to Facebook every day on the right-hand side and you hit birthdays. It tells you whose birthdays it is. It's really simple. And then I can, you know, I can send you a video. And then 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 I can send you a video. grab your phone, send it, take a quick selfie video, and then send it to the folks. And the cool thing is you don't have to get caught in a 20 to 30-minute conversation to catch up about life because you just sent them this video. So efficiency for me is huge. So how do I make these touches more efficient, but also very genuine and authentic? We do the mass stuff. That works too, but it's not the one-to-one that I want. I'm a relationship guy. I want to hear about you and your family and your vacations and, you know, all the things that you have going on. And, nice. And that's just it's a choice.
Yeah, it's a choice. Kind of like how everyone wants to run their business. And I think it's smart the way that you do it. So when you think about the operation, like I kind of nerd out a little bit on operation stuff a little bit. Like you have people, you have tech and tools. Like we've mentioned, like your operations director, you mentioned Sisu, mentioned Fellow, mentioned Follow Up Boss. Like when you look at it from an operation perspective and you're like, okay, here's these people, these systems, these tech and tools, the automation, etc. Like if I had to like cut and go to like the focus, like these are the things that like make us run our business, and like I would never cut these, would there be some things that you would say?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's easy. That's an easy one for me.
In the largest listing attraction experiment in real estate history, over 2,500 agents participated and generated 20,000 listing appointments, which actually attributed to over 7.5 billion in closed business for agents. That is the power of listing leads in action. We send over 25 hyper local newsletters, but you actually need to start conversations so you can generate more appointments. What to send, how to say it. That is why listing leads does all the work for you. You can just literally copy and paste and send. If you join today, use the code Andrew. Not only do you get a free trial, but I hooked our subscribers up with 50% off. For less than a cup of coffee a day, you can generate your own listing. Click the link in the description today if you want to generate your next listing. Now back to the show.
Biggest thing is Sisu for me. And the reason I say Sisu is we track and measure every KPI you can imagine. And here's it. Again, you and I discussed like tactics. Okay, so if I'm going to give the listeners something to think about that is incredibly simplistic, I just want people to remember this. The number one, in my opinion, key indicator that's going to lead to a sale is a met appointment. Okay, and the reason I say met over set is a set can cancel. You may never meet with that person. But if I physically meet with you, I have an opportunity now to hopefully bring value to you so you and I are in a mutually agreeing relationship that we're going to work together. Okay. If I focus on 2 new met appointments every day, I say every week, for the year, 52 weeks in a year, but you're not working 52 weeks a year. Say you're working 48 weeks a year. You might work less than that. Take that number, multiply that by 2. Okay. If it's 46, it's 96 met appointments for the year. Okay. You meet with 96 people and you have a conversion of 70% or even 65%. Do the math on that, right? You should be selling 42 to 45 homes per year. And I think that's average conversion. Put me in front of 96 people. You better believe I'm selling 70 houses or more. And that's not me killing myself or any other agent killing themselves to focus on 2 met appointments per week. I got this from Adam Hergenrother, right? He Livy, and I don't know if you're familiar with them or not, but Adam's a mentor and a friend. And, you know, that's one of the things. It's just the simplicity around show up every day, put your numbers in Sisu 5 out of 7 days a week, 2 met appointments per week, add 5 people to your database each week. Like it's such a simplistic system to follow and not get caught up in all the gazillion, I got to go film this content. I've got to have X amount of conversation. I've got to dial so many people. Like none of that shit matters. You've got to fall in love with the system or the process and stop focusing so much on the results. And if you just focus on the systems and the process, really the process, you'll have success, but you've got to be dedicated to it. Because if you think you're going to get results in a week or 2 weeks and you don't have the results that you were hoping for because you only implemented this for 2 weeks, like shame on you, man. You've got to have the discipline action to do this for the next 48 weeks. Can you do that? That's the question you have to ask yourself, right? So if I said Sisu for tracking and measuring, meaning I need to know how many appointments I'm going on, what's my conversion, all those things, right? So I think that's really important. So if you look at the 4 disciplines of execution, and again, I think the most important thing is the why, right? The wildly important goal. That's the number one. That's it. So what is it? Why is it important to you? And then it's developing the smart goals around that. Specific, measurable, attainable, relevant time frame. What Sisu is for us is it's number 3, which is act on lead measures. You got to have a conversation, whether it's a text, email, or a phone call to set an appointment. You got to set an appointment in order to meet an appointment. You got to meet an appointment in order to inevitably show homes, to negotiate a contract, and to get to a closing. So it's pretty simple, the actual process of what it takes. So you act on your lead measures. And again, we go back to Sisu 4. You create the compelling scoreboard, which is number 3. And then number 4 is there's got to be a cadence of accountability. Sisu is all of those things. So that's number 1. Well, obviously you've got to have a CRM. You've got to have like a place to put your people and like have your notes and like a way to contact them. I think having something like this home value, whether it's HomeBot or Fellow or whatever it may be, something that's providing some level of value to them. And I think that they're like, how are you going to stay top of mind? Whether that's via newsletters or emails, or that's video, or that's social media. I really think that those little few simple things would do it for you. I mean, what do you think, Andrew? You agree with that?
Yeah. And I think it's not just like putting someone on a HomeBot. I think that like extra small step that you do to reach out, like those are the small things that like make the difference. Like putting someone on HomeBot, Hi Fellow, like anyone can do that, but it's like taking that extra second to reach out and be like, oh, I adjusted it. Yeah. And like, what do you think of it?
So look, this happened today, right before this call. I jumped on Fellow. It was one of my people who got in there and filled it out, and they wanted to know what their thing was. It said it was 360. I went in there, I ran a quick CMA, and all I did was just went into the MLS and said sold pending over the last 12 months in their neighborhood. There was only 2. Both of them sold for the same price, which is $188 a square foot. That moved him up from 360 to 386. I popped it in, changed his value, sent it to him, sent him a text and said, hey, Colby, just want to let you know, man, I ran a personal CMA for you, and I changed the value, and I went ahead and updated that. Did you have any questions around the value of your home? And then that led to a text conversation. Anyways, you have to do that. You've got to be proactive and not reactive.
And was it hard for you to like transition from being a sales guy to be like, okay, I have to think of the business more operationally and systematically?
Yes. And I'll tell you what happened. I love this story, and I love you asking this question, because I realized something very important. I want to say fairly early. I wish it was earlier in my career than I did, but that's irrelevant, right? There's a time and a season for everything. I would go to Tom Ferry conferences or some real estate conference. I'd drink from a fire hose for 3 days. I'd have a list of things that I wanted to come back and implement. I'd get to my computer, and then I'm ready to implement whatever systems and processes, and then paralysis would set in. I read the book Rocket Fuel, which is the prequel sequel to Traction. And what it talks about is every great business needs to have a visionary and an integrator operator. And I learned very quickly that I was a visionary and I was not an integrator operator. So in order for my business to succeed at the level that I needed, I had to go and find an operator integrator. And when I did that, my business did this. Right. And I've learned that if it doesn't give me energy, Andrew, I don't do it. I go find someone else that it gives energy to, and then I allow them to do that, because I'm not my best self. Where I thrive is leading people, coaching, and personally producing. Those are the only 3 things in my world that you're typically going to see me do. Recruiting is something I do really well. Now, I'm not going to sit and have the conversations that lead up to it. I'm going to sit down across from them after they've made it through our filtering process, and then I'm going to close.
Okay.
That's it. That's the only things that I try to spend my time doing every single day. And if it's not in alignment with those things, I think about, and I probably have the book here somewhere. I do have this one. This one's a great book, by the way. The 10X is easier than 2X.
Oh, nice.
But Benjamin Hardy wrote another book called The Who Not How.
Yep.
And the who not how is the same concept. It doesn't necessarily have to be you, but who, right? And who is your who to do the, so again, I think it's really important to figure out, where do you thrive? You thrive. You told me you thrive in the operations part of this. You're like, I geek out over this stuff. I don't even know you very well. And I can tell you that's the part of the business that you probably need to be in, because it gives you energy.
Yeah, that, and like, I like the media side, the brand. Like,
yeah, of course.
I come from a sales background, so.
Yeah, so for me, the transition from being the top rainmaker salesperson to the leader was an easy transition, because I found the things that I was not good at, and I gave them to someone else who was great at that.
So talking to that, because you've talked about your operator and how it's made such a huge impact for you, was like, I guess first question kind of leads into that. Like, was he the first hire or the first person like that kind of stepped into that role?
So no, he was not. So my assistant at the time had her daughter was dating a young man. His name was Derek Reeves, and Derek, she said he would be a really good listing coordinator. And I was like, because we were hiring a listing, we were growing, we were scaling, we needed more help on the listing side. So that was literally like my second administrative hire. So I had my executive assistant, and then it was time to hire a listing coordinator. So we brought him on board, and then he exceeded at that position, but in an operations way. When I was like, dude, you need to stop spending your time doing this shit. We need to move you over here, because this is where you're going to thrive. And he did an amazing job implementing. And back then we were using CTE and, track and measure our business. And then we kind of graduated to Sisu, and he really helped like implement those. Well, he hit a ceiling with us, and felt like it was time for him to go and move on and do his own thing. And Daniel Woodson, who's my current operations director, worked actually as the mentee under the CEO of Geico. And was passing through, and I say passing through, he had met a girl here that lived right outside of Baton Rouge, and he moved in with her from Atlanta, Georgia, right? The relationship that was taken to the next level. And, not long into that, the relationship was kind of rocky, and I explained to him the job, and when Derek was stepping out, and he wanted more money than I could afford him at the time. And I said, Daniel, can I share my vision with you? He says, yeah, absolutely. So I shared my vision, and he said, dude, I'm in. That vision for me, I've got so much energy. And him and his girlfriend ended up not working out. And he said, Trey, I really need to move back to Atlanta to be close to my daughter and be with my family. Can I do that? I said, let's give it 30 days. We gave it 30 days, and that was like 2 years ago.
So I think that vision is crucial, because it falls under the saying, like, if you want A players, like, they have to be able to fit their vision underneath your vision,
of course, and
be able to see that. So could you talk to that vision a little bit to show people, like, this is what it kind of looked like?
Yeah. So I didn't set out to be the number one team in Louisiana. We're the number one team in Louisiana. We're the number one team in Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and the Panhandle of Florida with Keller Williams for the last 3 years. It's not the goal, right? The goal was right, how do we build an amazing company with amazing culture, right? With, like you said, A players and talent. And how do we make sure that the consumer has the greatest experience through this process? Because we know this process of buying and selling homes is not fun for a lot of people. Maybe selling sometimes is really hard, right? You got to prepare your house to sell. You've got you got to keep it clean. I mean, lots of things. Sellers, we're like, man, this sucks. But how do we make sure that this process, how do we make sure our communication is next level? How do we make sure, like, compliance-wise, it's next level? And so we just focused on those little things, and we just kind of started to compound on those. Zillow comes into my world and says, hey, we see what you're doing. We want to partner with you. Have you ever heard of this program called Flex? And we're like, no, tell me more. And I was paying a pretty decent, bill on the front end, and they told me what it entailed. And I said, okay, cool, let's do this. After a while, I said, hey, are there connections available anywhere else in Louisiana that I can have? And they're like, yeah, actually, we could do them in Lafayette. We could do them on the North Shore, and we could do them in South Shore. I said, okay. So I call, and this is one of the cool things about Keller Williams is there's market centers in all these areas. So I called the team leader and I'm like, hey, I'm ready to start a team. Do you have any great agents that I can give these opportunities to? So I started going to these market centers and I started meeting some of the agents. And again, the vision is like, all right, cool, let's scale. So now the vision is much bigger. So the vision now is we're in 3 markets. You had Jonathan Spears on your team, and I don't know how many people are familiar with it's called 30A. It's a road off of Highway 98 that's east of Destin that goes all the way almost to Panama City. Mm-hmm. And when I tell you aesthetically, and I'm not kidding, if you haven't been or you haven't seen it, you have to experience this. Jonathan said he coined the Hamptons of the South. I've been calling it the Hamptons of the South for 20 years. And I'm picking at him, but that there is some truth to that. But then I heard him say it, and I'm like, damn it, he actually really coined this thing, because people are going to believe him, they won't believe me. So you've got this beautiful stretch of highway where there's regulations and rules in place where you can't go above 4 stories in most cases. So you don't have all these high rises, and I'm talking, man, Alice Beach, Rosemary Beach, Watercolor, Seaside, Watersound. I mean, you got to see it. My point is my wife and I go there probably 7 or 8 times a year, and we're in the process of looking for our second home now. But I want to expand there. So past Christian, Bay St. Louis, which is an hour and about 20 minutes from Baton Rouge. A lot of transient, a lot of people from Baton Rouge. This is all on the coast. This is the Gulf of Mexico. And then you get into like Gulf Shores, Orange Beach, Fairhope, Daphne, and then you get into, the Panhandle, Pensacola, into Destin, and then, of course, into 30A. So the goal now is expand into the Panhandle and then just start getting into those kind of more like, I call them like micro markets where there is some transition. And from Baton Rouge, people are buying second homes there. So now we can plant a flag there. We can say, hey, not only can we service you in Baton Rouge, but we can also service you for your vacation home. And I've learned a lot about cost segregation, accelerated depreciation, and just things that we can do to help our clients with tax liability, which has really helped them, go find properties in these other places. So for now, that's the vision. We started a mortgage company. We have a property management company right now. And, to continue to scale, we've got a commercial agent that's now working with us. So we want to start to take on more of those commercial opportunities. So that as of today, that is the vision. Just continue to grow, continue to scale from an agent count, and continue to expand. I don't want to go west. I want to go east.
Because I imagine thinking about that, like Zillow Flex, like they take 30 to 40%, and then you have 50% that's taken from the agent. Like you had to be like, okay, in order to scale, profitability becomes a big thing. And like when Zillow is handing you a lot of leads, like you're sometimes just like drinking out a fire hose, like, okay, let's grow, etc. And then profitability takes a little bit of a hurt, but then you have to like self-correct and redirect. So thinking of that, like, I'm sure there's things that you were like, okay, we have to think now, like, how do we make it more profitable? Or like, how do we like grow so it is profitable? And that's maybe where the ancillary services came in.
100%. But also think of this. So the every business that you create, you want to lead with revenue. Okay. Which is something I tell everybody. Don't start in the hole. Don't spend your way to revenue. That's ridiculous. If you're doing that model, I said private equity is big in that model, which is fine. They got billions of dollars to spend. That's fine. I don't have that kind of money. So I have to lead with revenue.
Yeah.
Zillow Flex has allowed me to move into a market, lead with revenue. And then once we've established some revenue, now we've got some money to deploy for other lead sources. Now we can start buying those realtor.com leads, those PPC leads, right? So we built the foundation here. And now that's scalable. So we're just doing the same thing. My ISA could call sellers anywhere he wants from this office. Virtual assistants can work from anywhere. So with this new world that we live in, it's just given us that opportunity to scale and move into these other markets without having to like take these massively like expensive upfront costs. So when we do move into those and we start buying the, PPC leads, and we start to develop more of like a sphere of influence, past client type database, because maybe we pull somebody in who is local, we just plug them into our systems and processes, man, and teach them how we do business and how we operate. And we can fast track those folks to being incredibly successful in a pretty short period of time if they follow the process.
So what it sounds like is like Zillow kind of helps you open the door, and then once the door is a little more open, you're like, okay, let's redistribute the money and let's use it for getting agents, other lead sources, and then let's build that foundation.
Yep, you got it, man. It's as simple as that sounds, man. That's the strategy. Lead with revenue, right? Because I'm a very conservative guy. I'm not a big risk taker. So they've given me this opportunity not to have to take a tremendous amount of risk, and they reward us because they're being rewarded the amount of transactions and the amount of revenue that they're making from us. And when you said profitability, I always think of cost of sale, because I have to pay Zillow, and that's a cost of sale and not an expense. So you're absolutely right. What do we need to do from a profitability standpoint? How do we lean up? How do we, eliminate any variable costs, get everything fixed, and then volume wise or GCI wise, where do we need to be in order to make this market successful? Fortunately, we've been successful in every market we've expanded to. There's a lot of teams that'll tell you that wasn't the case. They would tell you expansion's terrible, don't do it. But they weren't leading with revenue. They were going down there with $100,000 in an investment, and it failed, and then they didn't have any revenue to replace it. So that was it. For us, it's just the opposite. So I won't move into a market unless we're leading with revenue in some form.
And I imagine, because it's super popular right now, especially with private equity, all these holding companies people are building, it's like when you get to a certain size, you're like, okay, we can have a director of operations in ISA, and that stuff can be transferred over to this new market, and it's not taking on an extra expense necessarily at that scale.
Andrew, where are you today, right now? Where are you and I chatting from?
I'm in Tampa, Florida.
You're in Tampa, Florida. I'm in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. My operations director's in Atlanta. You know what I mean? Like, this technology allows us to do that. I mean, I feel like I'm sitting down with you in a room and we're having a conversation. I don't feel like you're, it's all the way in Tampa.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what we've done. I mean, my marketing director is running 3 markets. My operations director is running 3 markets. Those are an hour away from me. Whether I go an hour, 45 minutes east, or I go an hour south, I can be at either one of my offices in an hour.
Because now it's like you're looking at the organization as like a flat organization. And you're like, okay, great. My marketing person is not just one. They're doing 3 markets, and you can do the costs and expenses across 3 markets instead of 1 now.
Correct. And what we do there is we find out where's the cog in the wheel. Getting like a intern to do some social media marketing, easy fix. Getting a virtual assistant to help him with some of his work, pretty inexpensive way to, not have to bring on another expensive W-2 employee.
Salary, yeah.
Yeah, you got it. You nailed it, man. That's it. It's that simple.
Yeah. So it's kind of cool when you start to think about, like, when you moved from a salesperson to like a CEO type role, like, and you look at client acquisition for listings and buyers. Now you're going into talent acquisition. Like, there's skills that transfer over, but then there's also new skills that you had to learn to be able to hire the right people. I was curious, if you were to look back at like your operations person, like your ISA, your marketing, like, are there things that like you've learned about hiring the right people?
Yeah. So again, it's the old saying, kind of hire fast or hire slow, fire fast kind of situation. You know what I mean? When you have people that are performing poorly, you got to get them out of your organization. I mean, it's as simple as that, right? You have to have standards, number one, and you have to hold those people to those standards. And I think standards are everything. And I think, listen, I'm guilty. I am not going to sit here and say that we run this amazing, perfect team where everybody operates on the same level of standards and everything's perfect. And look, do we bend on the standards? Yes, of course we bend on the standards. if somebody's great for culture, but they're not necessarily a producer, does that mean I'm going to get rid of them? No, absolutely not. You know what I mean? Like, but the goal is if are they working towards getting better? Yes or no?
Mm.
If they are, then that's awesome. But if they're not, and they're really just kind of just taking up space, we're going to ask them to leave. And it's the same thing on like W-2 employees. Like you got to get them in and get them out quickly if they're not performing to these standards. And hopefully you're setting some pretty high standards for your organization. We've set pretty high standards for our organization.
Nice. Yeah, I think having that upfront, like here's the job, here's the role, here's the expectations, it's super crucial.
Easy to have conversations when people aren't performing when you have that agreement. And listen, I don't micromanage anybody. My team will tell you, my administrative team will tell you, like, don't expect Trey to micromanage you and ask you what you did today, because he's not going to do it. But if you do your job and you do it at a high level and you're consistent, you will be rewarded handsomely. And that's just the way it is. I don't believe that you cannot control talent. You cannot get in talent's way. You got to get out of the way and you go let them do what they do. I'm never going to call you and ask you where you are or what are you working on today. Now, we'll have those conversations in our quarterly meetings and our weekly meetings, like, hey, what is the big focus this week? And then we'll circle back. How's that going? But I'm not in your office and I'm not asking you what you accomplished today.
And that's something that I found interesting about you is like you meet with every single agent every single month. At least that I've seen.
It's gotten to the point to where it's almost impossible. So we've created mentorships and pod leaders and things like that. But I still meet with my top agents every month. And I'm available to be with anybody anytime if they come to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was curious because you probably learned a lot, like scaling that, like you met with everyone once a month and now you've you've had to work through pods and work through coaches. Like, what have you learned about coaching people the right way and the wrong way?
Best thing I ever learned becoming a coach with Tom Ferry. I'll never forget. I walked in this place. I don't know if you know Doug Edrington or not, or Anthony Nazoff, or Naz. I always mispronounce his name, but Andy, myself, and Doug went into Tom Ferry coaching, and we thought we were big shit. We were like, because we knew so much. Well, we learned pretty quickly there's a big difference between direct coaching and indirect coaching. And great coaching comes from asking really great questions and self-discovery. And I will tell you that is the most important role or rule, I guess, that I learned as a coach, is being a great listener and helping people come up with the answer on their own. You know, do you need to be directive from time to time in coaching? 1,000%. But I think the most profound coaching comes from more of an indirect and really, a place of curiosity and helping lead them to self-discovery. I believe that.
Is that hard? Like you're sitting down across the table from someone that needs direction and you know exactly what to do. You could tell them exactly what to do, but like I imagine like you can't to get them, like you can't just be like do this and they'll just do it. So
okay. At the end of the day, as I'm saying, I can tell you and lead you and guide you and I can't make you do it. You have to do this yourself. And that's the hardest thing in the world is getting people to take disciplined action.
So do you just have to like pull that out of them through questions?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Why is this important to you? Right? You made a commitment. You said this is important to you. Why is it important to you? Well, is it really that important to you? Right? Because if someone were to walk in this door right now and put a gun to your head and said, you are going to die unless you go and meet with 2 new people this week, could you do it? Well, yeah, of course I could, Trey. Okay, cool. So are you saying your life is pretty important to you? Well, of course, Trey, obviously. Okay, right. I know this is like a crazy example of something, but it's just true. If it were life and death situation, you do it. The thing is it's not that important to you. So it's really trying to figure out what is it that's really important. Why'd you get in this business? What's important to you about making X amount of dollars? And like, again, this is self-discovery. And if they come up with it in their why and it's big enough, man, that they'll do anything. I mean, they'll run through a brick wall for you. You got to get clear on why. Why in the world are you doing this? Because listen, I tell my agents all the time, dude, you can go make $60,000, $70,000 a year with benefits and have the weekends off. Why not go do that? You might make more money doing that than you will here. Well, I want flexibility. You know, I don't want anybody to tell me what my ceiling is or what my capacity is. I'm like, okay, great. Now we're getting somewhere, but why? You know, like, and I'll keep going and going and going until I get something. And typically over time, people become vulnerable enough or they just take their walls down and they're just like, look, this is really why I'm doing this. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. And then it's just to find out why. Is it pain? Is it pleasure? And if it's pain or pleasure, pushing on those, that's what I find works. But I'm also not the kind of person who's going to sit here and just keep coming in there and like stroking your ego and telling you how amazing you are and oh, it's okay. Like, look, I'm going to pour into the people that are pouring into themselves, right? John Sheplack says this all the time, and I think this is one of the coolest things he says. He says, he said, feed the stallions and starve the ponies. So let that sink in.
It's kind of funny. At the beginning, you said the ALM for Zillow, appointment list motivations.
Yeah, location. Yep.
Location. Digging deep into those motivations, and the same exact thing, just not with consumers, with agents, 7 levels deep. Find the motivations and hold them to those.
Well, why is it important to you to buy or sell your home? Is it pain? Do you have to move? Are you getting a divorce? Are you moving? Is it like, what is it? Is it pleasure? Man, we got a lot of equity in here. I really like this house. I really like to upgrade. It'd be really cool if we could buy something. So what is it? Okay, cool. Now I'm gonna chat with you about pleasure. Like, what would it feel like if, right? Like, how would this affect you? Like, magic words, right? Again, simple stuff, but
it's funny. It's simple, and it's the same thing: pain, pleasure, agent, consumers, buyers, sellers.
Look, emotional intelligence, man. And I'm not telling anybody anything they don't know. I just hope it's enough to where something I said today clicks for somebody, right? And whatever that is, they take that and then they go a little deeper.
So, just out of curiosity, how does like a young kid who is like a DJ, like a server in the service industry, like, did you always want to become like a real estate agent? Like, how did you get from there to here?
Dude, if you and I were to sit down and you were to be like, Trey, you're going to be the CEO of the #1 real estate team in Louisiana, and I would have been like, who are you talking to? Man, it was never about that, man. I'm going to tell you what it comes down to. I take a lot of pride in myself and in the work that I do. That is incredibly important for me. So whether I was the server, and people will tell you to this day, it's funny, I have people come to me all the time. They're like, man, when I worked with you at Cheesecake Bistro, I knew you were going to be successful by just your work ethic, how you treated your peers, how you treated your customers. You just, how I treated the dishwasher, the fry cook. It didn't matter. We're all equal. You follow me? The relationships I had in the service industry were unbelievable. DJing. So it's so funny you said that, because most people don't know that, and I don't ever lead with that, but I was a professional DJ for a little over 10 years. And I worked my way up from like playing in a club to playing in the biggest clubs in Baton Rouge, New Orleans, Lafayette, playing for celebrities, like opening up for Little John. And I've had some pretty amazing gigs, and it was always because I wanted to be the best. So I'd sit in my room in my house with my 2 MK3 turntables, my Rane TTM mixer, and I would mix and I would scratch, and I would just, I worked on my craft all the time, because everything that I've ever done, I want to be the best at it. I didn't want to necessarily be the #1 real estate team in the world, but I wanted to be the best real estate agent. And then all that just kind of, and now it's like when you start to break through certain ceilings, you just realize your greatness that's inside of you. If you really start to tap into that, and you get really, really crystal clear on what you want, you take, again, I've said discipline action multiple times. I just try to take action every single day.
So I was curious into that. Like, what do you feel like if you looked at like yourself and then you look at your agents, like there's probably some switch or some moment where it's like, okay, everything kind of changed and like you're able to kind of unlock yourself?
Yeah, man. So I don't know the exact moment. I've been going on a pretty deep spiritual journey here for the last several years, and reading the Bible in a year, going to church every Sunday. I mean, getting in the Word every single day. And I'd like to lead by saying, like Jesus, and the purpose that I live today, which I'll read it to you. And this was really kind of, I don't necessarily say this is when things really change for me, but my purpose is to elevate and inspire individuals to overcome limiting beliefs, master their potential, and execute their dreams with unwavering determination. And I say that to say that that's what happened to me. I was exposed to enough. I was influenced by enough. And a lot of this was like a little bit of the compound effect, Andrew. So it was like me going to a Tom Ferry conference in 2014 and seeing these people standing on stage that were doing 500 units per year. And I said to myself, well, if they can do it, then I can do it. And then what it does is you go back and you reflect, okay, what are they doing that I'm not doing? What does their business look like? Sales, marketing, operations. How are they structured? Where do I need to go hire? Who do I need to hire? What does my standards need to look like? What level of accountability do I need to hold the people in my world? And all you do is you just refine that. Refinement, 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 refinement. And over time, you look up and it's like, holy shit, how did I get here? And that's really how I truly feel. I'm like, how did I get here? But I also know that I haven't even begun to scratch the surface of what my potential is. And that's exciting.
Was it all sunshine and rainbows for you?
Never.
The whole thing? No?
No, never, man. I mean, this real estate business, and one of the things I'm still trying to like really figure out is, I'm trying to get more insulation, but as long as I'm in personal production, it's hard to get that insulation from my clients. But I mean, to be on a vacation and be able to completely disconnect, turn my phone off and know that the world's going to just be okay, which it typically will be, but like still clients calling, deals coming in, you know what I mean? So like trying to find some more insulation in myself, that's a big word. But like, man, I mean, for the first probably like 8 to 10 years, and my wife will tell you, right? I was gone all the time because when I first started selling real estate, I was playing gigs in the evenings. Thursday, Friday, Saturday night. You better believe from like 9, 10 o'clock till 2 a.m. I had a gig in town, out of town. Wake up the next day, go show real estate. Man, I was a freak for a while, but I did what I had to do. Had a baby, man. You know what I mean? Had a daughter. I have 2 daughters now, 14 and 8 now, but that was a big thing for me. And it was just like, look, I'm going to do whatever I need to do because I got to do this, because now there's people in this world that are counting on me. It's not just me anymore. You know what I mean? So I think I had to grow up pretty fast when that happened. I think 27 when I had my first child. I'm 42 now, and yeah, man, it's just different, dude. It's crazy. But I think the biggest thing for me was the things that I was exposed to. So going to these conferences and putting yourselves in rooms where you're the dumbest person, right, in the room. Like that's where you need to live. And the places I still want to live, and I still have my mastermind groups all over the country, where I'm still talking. I mean, Doug Edrington and I talk all the time. I mean, he's a, 500-600 a year. One of my really good friends who I've gotten close to is a guy named Matt Curtis, who runs the #1 team in Alabama. And he's in Huntsville. Matt's going to sell 1,000 houses. Dude, Jay Pitts in Kentucky is my homeboy. I mean, we talk all the time. He's doing 1,000 units a year. It's just like, Tom Toole, Byron Lazine, Lisa Chinati, Jill Biggs. I mean, I can go on and on and on, but those are the people that I surround myself with. And that's the old Jim Rohn that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So who's going to challenge you and who's going to help you grow? Go be the least producer of 10 and get yourself in there somehow and just do whatever you can to be a part of that.
So I think I have I think that's crucial. Like put yourself in rooms where you're the smallest fish. Like I live by that. I think that's like, you want to keep like leveling up and see like, okay, let me put around those people just out of curiosity, because like I'm 30, just got married. Like
Congrats.
thanks. We're at the point where like we're talking about kids, and there's probably other people in my boat who are still building. Like we're still kind of like moving upwards. Like,
Of course.
and it's a grind to that point, and that can take a toll,
Yeah.
especially on like a new marriage and like wanting to have kids and like, for example, just making sure like there's time for them and like that they feel valued despite having to spend, like, you have to put in work for the business, but you also have to put in work for the family.
Of course.
Can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah. You know, look, I think for most people, everybody's looking for the balance. You want a 9 to 5 and you want to go home at the same time every day and you want to be present, all the things that's amazing. For me, that wasn't an option, right? My options were, hey, you got a wife and a daughter and you've got, you know, a crazy amount of ambition and you need to go and do what you got to do. And again, you look up 14 years later and you're like, again, how did I get here? And now I'm at a point where I'm leveraged a lot more in my world. My girls are still young. I don't think I'm there for every event that I need to be present for. You know what I mean? Like I'm there for everything. I'm home every evening. You know what I mean? At a really decent time. We do a lot for our children. You know, my wife and I both made a decision a long time ago that we wanted to give our children the things that necessarily maybe we didn't have when we were children. And that's not a knock to our parents. That's just, it is what it is. You know what I mean? We're in a different situation financially where we can provide for them and do the things that we weren't able to do. But I know that my biggest growth happened between the last 10 years from 30 to 40, or really even 35 to 40, or even to 42 today. So how do I expose them to the things that I was exposed to when I really, really grew, so I could fast track their little brains and their little minds to fast track to where there is no ceilings, right? There's nothing that holds me back. I mean, they probably get tired of dad saying all the time, like, you can do whatever it is that you want to do as long as you believe that you can, right? So like, how do we mold their little brains into thinking like that? And again, this is like stuff that was in the Bible, right? So a man thinketh he is. Also, if you want to look at personal development, you know, Think and Grow Rich, right? Like you can take those, and I'm reading a really cool book by Trevor Moawad called It Takes What It Takes.
Oh yeah.
And his dad instilled all of that into him when he was a kid, and he grew up and he was a mental conditioning coach. So it's like, those are the things for me that are really important. Is like, how do I obviously, like, number one, mom and dad love each other and they have an amazing relationship, right? We want to be a role model to them. Like my parents love each other. We take them to do things. We do things as a family all the time, right? And it's just giving them those experiences and exposing to all those things that life has to offer that our parents weren't able to do for us. We now want to do that for our children. So I feel like I'm as present as I've ever been with my kiddos, and my wife does an amazing job, and the respect level we have for each other is unbelievable. And she is the one that keeps everything at home and at work. And she works with me. I mean, she's a killer. She does it at home and she does it at work. And then she gives me the opportunity to go and do what I love and what I'm really good at.
That's awesome. Really quick, if people want like more about you and more from you, they just want to follow you, where should they go?
Yeah, I mean, Facebook, I think I've like almost maxed out on friends, but I don't know. The Trey Willard, obviously there, and then Trey.Willard on Instagram. I'm not a huge social media guy. I need to be more proactive. The W Group, we've got a little YouTube channel too, where we post some certain things. But yeah, I'm pretty easy. Just Trey Willard, Facebook, Instagram. I'm around. So happy to, people reach out to me all the time personally, and I always take time out to spend time with people, because giving back to this community, which has given me so much, is incredibly important to me.
Yeah, that's awesome. So go check that out. So, really quick.
Yeah.
When you look at like your daughters and like how you want to raise them, and then you look at like everything that you've learned from, like, you can say raising agents, because they can be kind of like kids, like, and you think about how you want to show up and what like world-class leadership means to you. What does it mean to you when you think about that and raising?
I really, like I said, like we just talked about from a mindset standpoint. Number one, I want them to have a really strong relationship in their faith, and that's something my wife and I are being very intentional about. We're going to church, every Sunday. We're exposing them to that, right? My daughter actually starts as a freshman in the Catholic school this year. Excited about that. So I want there to be that. I want there to be the foundation of the spiritual life in the house. Number two, the mindset, man. I want them to truly believe and have a tremendous amount of confidence that they can achieve anything that they put their mind to. So whatever it is that they want to do, they believe it because mom and dad, number one, we've been an influence and we've shown them and we've taught them that you can do this. And oh, by the way, like affirmations, right? Like what are we grateful for? Those kind of things. So just molding their minds while they're at such a young age to believe in themselves and have that confidence, you know what I mean, that they can do whatever it is that they want. And I've got a competitive cheerleader at 9 years old, and I've got a dancer at 14, and they're doing the things that they love, and they're great kids, and we hear from our friends all the time, like they want to include our kiddos in everything because they're such good kids. They're very respectful, and they're a lot of fun. And as long as they're doing those things and they're giving everything into the things that they're doing, and I'm proud of them. But when they slack, we hey guys, look, let's pick it up a little bit, man. You know what I mean? Like the thing is with kiddos these days is like we want to protect them, and sometimes this is good and sometimes this is bad because we don't want anything bad to happen to them. And sometimes we protect them maybe a little too much, where they don't get to experience that failure, they don't get to experience some of that stuff. And I think that would build me up to who I am today, is experiencing that. And I'm gritty, man. I'm just a gritty dude. And like, I want my kiddos to have that same grit, but it's like walking that fine line of too much protection, you know what I mean? And then not enough. So, I think it's a challenge that we're all going to have to face, but inevitably my wife and I, we just want to make sure that we are an incredibly positive influence on them, and they see that we love each other and that we love them. And man, that's important to me.
Yeah, that's good. That's important, especially the failure piece. I think you learn a lot through that.
100%. I mean, I've failed lots of times, and it's how fast that you can pick yourself up, have your 5-minute funeral, and move on.